Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, and it's the end of David De Gea at Manchester United. He is officially no longer a Manchester United player. The speculation is over, the contract is up. He's getting married this weekend, but he's no longer a Manchester United player. There is no wage to pay. There is no David De Gea as a Manchester United player as we sit here or stand here, or maybe you're running around, maybe you're in the shower. Be careful if you are. But it's... Don't slip. Don't do a Stevie G. But he's not a Man United player anymore. That's official. The club will tell you that. You know that yourself. You know, you don't need me to tell you. He's not a Manchester United player anymore. Some might say that there's a way back. He could still sign the contract. I'll give you my thoughts on that, but he's no longer a player. So where are Manchester United? We'll talk about that. Also, very interesting, I want to talk about Jadon Sancho's future. It's a very important issue for Ten Hag. It's not really getting the exposure it should, because there's a lot of other stories around the sale, around the goalkeeper, around Mason Greenwood, around transfers and sales as well. We'll talk about that. But also an acknowledgement, and an acknowledgement from very good sources. And we mentioned this a few weeks ago. Erik Ten Hag is already on transfer plan C. Plan A went a long time ago. Plan B has gone. He's already on transfer plan C. We'll talk about why and what that means in a moment. But look, that is really important because this is not going the way Ten Hag wanted it to go. And it's not really Erik Ten Hag's that it's not. So let's talk about that in a moment. But let's stick with the headline. Breaking news. Slow sports news. I've played the game. David De Gea, no longer a Manchester United player. 12 years at the club. His contract expired on the 30th of June. It's the 1st of July today. Where did June go, Simon? I don't know. I don't know. Crunchy, not cornflakes. But it's July the 1st. And David De Gea is no longer a Manchester United player. Simon, what are your thoughts on that? Well, I'm not Simon, I'm Mark. My thoughts on that are that we knew this was going to happen. He's... something changed, which we'll talk about in a moment. There is no contract agreement, and he is no longer a Manchester United player. I personally, when do you think the Glazers are going to sell? Says Nub. Don't know. I personally think that the sale could happen anytime, by the way. It could happen anytime between now and 2039. But in relation to De Gea, there is people saying he could easily sign the new contract. And my personal hunch all week has been that he will leave. I don't think that there's a way back. I don't see a way back. And unless he's number one, I don't think there should be a way back. I'm absolutely on board with what people say, that you cannot have a reserve goalkeeper on over £100,000 a week. And the contract that United are putting towards De Gea is in excess of £150,000 a week. So why are we paying a reserve goalkeeper £150,000 a week? And why are we keeping a reserve goalkeeper who's been a legend for 12 years to be reserve goalkeeper? And then when he does get the chance to play a game in the Carabao Cup or an easy game at home, will play completely different. So I think that De Gea will leave. I think that's the next step. I question why it's taken so long. I don't really understand that. It's very, very clear that United are trying to get Onana, and if they don't get Onana, they might look at Costa, and if they don't get Costa, they'll probably go, do we want Raya more than we want De Gea? And if they don't want Raya, then they might keep De Gea. It's just a bit of a mess, really, but it will leave. David De Gea will leave. I think next week will be about David De Gea leaving. I expect the club will make a big effort around it. I wouldn't be surprised if the information we had yesterday morning, and remember we broke this before even the BBC did, that the talks for Onana is not as advanced as people are reporting. And all that talk yesterday of deals being done yesterday and deals being done tomorrow and last night, they didn't happen. Because the information we had on Friday morning was that, and it was coming from good sources close to the club, was that United do want Onana. That's true. But they're not as advanced in relation to signing him as some reports are. And, you know, that's the Italian reports for you. I think we do sign David De Gea. Sorry, I think we do. Sorry, whoa, don't cause a panic. I think we do sign Onana. But I think there might be a little bit of PR here from United, whereby early next week, there's a lot about what David De Gea has done at this club. A lot of compilations, a lot of thank yous, you know. And then I think maybe towards the end of next week, we sign Onana and we start a new chapter. I think that's how United will run it, because I think they know that it's not been handled that well so far, and I think that's what will happen. So David De Gea is no longer a Manchester United player. I don't think he will be a Man United player again. I think we will get Onana. I just think it will take a little bit longer while United transition. They do want to talk to De Gea about the contract. I've got to say, I'm amazed that we would offer De Gea 150 grand a week or more to be a reserve goalkeeper. I just think it's ridiculous. There is loyalty, there is compassion, but there is also time to move on. If he's not number one, it's time to move on. My stance, and some of yours, was I don't think that changing the goalkeeper this summer was essential compared to what other things were. Erik Ten Hag has decided it has. Let's move on. I've had a few people say to me, oh, yeah, well, Goldbridge, you're telling people to be respectful of David De Gea. You weren't respectful of Fellaini. He was a shower of shit. I don't think he was very good. I won't be respectful of certain other players when they leave. You do and deliver in a United shirt, you earn respect. You earn respect in life. It's not a given. You don't wear a Man United shirt and get respect. And then somebody said, well, what about Rashford last year? You said we should sell him. Rashford's always been one of my favourite players. If we'd sold him, I'd have wished him all the best. I just felt that the relationship was breaking down, and credit to him, he fought back. And no one would sell Rashford now. Somebody said to me, what about Rooney? You said you wanted him gone. I did. Rooney's a legend of this club. I wanted him gone. That was my opinion at the time. Many of you might agree with that. Many of you might agree that David De Gea is a legend of the club and it's time to go. I'm not a robot. Every player is different. I don't think it's time for De Gea to go. Many of you do. I thought it was time for Rooney to go. Most of you agreed. Rooney's still a legend, still respectful when he went. I was like, it's time to go. He's not been good enough for the last couple of years. It's time to go. So, look, you earn respect. Rooney was a legend. I really liked Ander Herrera. Don't think he was respected. Van Persie, I think he was fantastic. Wasn't respected. You earn respect. You don't just get respect because you're a Man United player. That's not the way it works. Rasmus Hoyland, welcome to the members club. Imagine if it was the real one. It could be. It could be. But let's just move on a little bit. I think one of the things that people really want to discuss, and we spoke about this a few weeks ago, didn't we? Ten Hag is already on plan C. When this Onana and Costa and De Gea leaving story started, was it a week or 2 or 3 ago? There's a lot of fishing around as to why this was happening and why they'd waited till June to cause such chaos. And we said it at the time. It's because Erik Ten Hag has had to pivot around his transfer plan. Transfer plan A for Erik Ten Hag was Harry Kane, Mason Mount, Kim Min-jae. And Rabiot. That was his summer. Rabiot would have been free. Kim Min-jae would have been 40 million. Mason Mount 55, and then Harry Kane, and that's everything. That's all gone. You spent nearly 200 million pounds, and whether people like it or not, that was his summer transfer plan A. Kane, Mount, Rabiot, Kim Min-jae. He will only get one of those players, so he shifts to plan B, and he looks at. And I don't know what plan B was, to be honest. I don't know what plan B was. Was it Casido? Was it Osimhen? We don't know. He's on plan C at the moment. And the reason we shifted towards buying a goalkeeper, and it's as clear as day, people can acknowledge it or not, Onana was not on plan A. Costa was not on plan A. David De Gea staying was plan A. That's why the contract was there, and that's why it's now been changed. The reason United are going for Onana, and the reason David De Gea is leaving, and the reason it's been a little bit chaotic / disrespectful, whatever you want to say, is because Manchester United did not deliver Erik Ten Hag's plan A. Erik Ten Hag's plan A was 200 million being spent on Kane, Rabiot, Mount and Kim Min-jae. When Kane became impossible, Kim Min-jae became destroyed, and Rabiot is irrelevant because he's a free transfer, you've suddenly spent £50 million on Mason Mount, and you've got about another 150 to spend. And at that point, Erik Ten Hag said to the board, well, you're not getting me Kane. You're not getting me Kim Min-jae. I'm not even sure I want a centre-back anymore. There's no striker out there I'm going to spend 100 million on. So there's quite a bit of money there spare that I'm now going to put towards a goalkeeper. And that is what has happened. And that is why, however long the last couple of weeks has been around this goalkeeper situation, that's what's happened. He's on plan C. Plan A, we never would have bought a goalkeeper because he would have had Kane, Kim Min-jae, Mount and Rabiot. And people can say, you don't know that. Well, we do know that. And also, there'd be no money to buy a goalkeeper if you bought Kane, Kim Min-jae, Mount and Rabiot. So that's why we are where we are. Ultimately, you can say what you want about that. You can say that that's incompetence from the top. You can say that they're rubbish at negotiating. You can say these things happen in a transfer window. But Ten Hag's been forced to pivot. And sometimes pivoting is not just keeping the same plan of centre-back, striker and 2 midfielders. I think from this... I know why he's done it as well. When we get a Nana, how many years do you expect him to perform for the club, or how many years minimum do you want for a keeper? Jarrett, he's 27, so I'd like to see a good 8. Glazer's out, says he's not a United player anymore. How dare they ask him to stick around in case they get a Nana? What a joke this club is. I'm absolutely fuming. Qatar need to sack everyone if they get this club, says Glazer's out. How can they let De Gea leave without locking his replacement? Simply disorganised, says Enzumo. And there was a good question in there, and it's a very good question actually. If plan A was Kane, Mount, Rabiot, Kim Min-jae, why would you then change to bringing a goalkeeper in and going for an inexperienced striker? And it's a good question, because if it was Kane, Mount, Rabiot and Kim Min-jae, or let's put it a better way, striker, 2 midfielders and centre-back, why would you go from striker to midfielder to goalkeeper and not get the centre-back and the midfielder anymore? And I think it's just simply football. It's not always as regimented or rigid that you want a striker, 2 midfielders and a centre-back, because the profile of those players is very different. Harry Kane up front would have been a proven, experienced leader, world-class striker. Rasmus Højlund will be a young, up-and-coming, developmental, potentially world-class striker. So you've gone from super experienced world-class striker to inexperienced potential world-class striker. What Ten Hag has done, I think, is if he'd have got Kane and he'd got Kim Min-jae and he'd got Rabiot and he'd got Mount, that's a spine of experience. Different levels of experience, but they've all performed. You know, Rabiot's played in a World Cup French team. Mount's played for Chelsea in the Champions League. Kim Min-jae's won a title. Harry Kane's a very experienced striker. Now he's just got Mount. I think he's pivoted to Onana for a few reasons. One, the budget is allowing him to get a goalkeeper now. But two, Onana is a leadership, experienced goalkeeper in the spine as well. So I think that if he was... I'm sure he would love to have Onana, Kane, 2 midfielders and a Kim Min-jae type centre-back. But United have ruined that. So I just think Ten Hag's been dynamic. And unfortunately, I think Ten Hag is an obsessive... I think he's an organised manager, and I don't think he'll be particularly happy how he's had to change his plans, but ultimately he has to be ruthless. And I just think he's gone, well, look, my budget was spent on Kane, Kim Min-jae, Mount and Rabiot. You didn't get me 3 of those players. There's no striker that's like Kane. I'm going to have to go for Højlund. I want some, there's no midfielder I can get because Rabiot is free. I don't really like the centre-backs that are available other than Kim Min-jae. I'm going to pivot towards getting a really good goalkeeper in. And I think that's what he's done. And ultimately, absolutely spot on. If you want to apportion any blame here, you can't really apportion the blame to Ten Hag. Ten Hag is a manager. He has to be ruthless. He has to change. But when you acknowledge that this is not plan A, Erik Ten Hag didn't come into the summer transfer window saying, don't get me Kim Min-jae, don't get me Harry Kane, don't get me Rabiot, just get me Mount and Onana and we'll see about everything else. That wasn't his plan. We're in July. It's not his plan. He has to be dynamic and he has to change. Solskjaer wouldn't have known what to do in a position like this. Like, Solskjaer just wasn't a coach. Mourinho, I think, would have thrown his toys out the pram and gone, I've not got what I wanted. I've not got what I wanted. I think Ten Hag is a more pragmatic coach. He will not be happy, but that's not going to help him. I think Ten Hag's looked at it and gone, okay, they've messed up what I wanted, but let's move towards plan C. And I think Ten Hag's the sort of guy, and we've seen that with United last year. We didn't play like Ajax at all. We played more like Sam Allardyce at times. It was counter-attacking. But it just shows you that Ten Hag is very... he can adapt. He adapts to the environment. Whether he likes it or not, he will adapt, and that's what's happened here. Now that David's gone, it's a championship. Here we come, says Marcus. Okay, yeah, we're not winning the league. Marcus, thank you very much for your super chat. I'd almost say a super prat. You might want to understand a little bit more about football. We're not going to win the league just because we change our goalkeeper. We still need a striker. The midfield is still very, very weak. We've still got Harry Maguire in our back four roster. So look, we're still a long way off from winning the title. But I'm glad you like the signing. I'm glad it makes you feel positive. I certainly, well, we've not signed him yet, but I'm a big fan of Onana. Inter will pull out our pants down now, says Charlie Max, and he's probably bringing forward signings planned for January next summer and pushing back others like CDM. It's unfortunate. Exactly, James, I think you've absolutely nailed it. I think it's a priority list, isn't it? You know, I've done this before. I've headed into town. There's a list of things I want to get. You know, maybe I want a pair of shorts, pair of trainers, a couple of jumpers, a t-shirt if I've got a bit of money left. You go in, you can't find the jumper that you want, even though it's a priority, but there's a nice t-shirt. It's just about shifting your priorities. Erik ten Hag, like you say, will have priorities. In January, Erik ten Hag wanted a right back. In the summer, he doesn't want one. Mark, on the phone, I said I'm getting 20 plus goals, says Rasmus Højlund. Thank you very much. And according to reports in Portugal, Taremi would be available for 20 million. I can see us signing him to free up funds for a CDM and a goalkeeper with Rasmus, says Mo. I don't trust Portuguese reports. I said that last night. I don't trust Portuguese reports. We let David go but keep Maguire. I think I'm going to throw up. The Glazers continue to redefine the word useless, says Curlin. And the disrespect towards someone who has never slagged off the club or players has been terrible. Would love to know how Beth would have been when Rooney wanted to leave or when Keane left for Celtic, says Mike Thomas. Look, we cannot judge those whose shoes we do not walk in, but it's a very ruthless style of supporting your football club, isn't it? You know, we're all prone to disliking players, but this will obviously be very interesting. My interpretation of those who've, you know, been relentless in their, you know, attack on David De Gea is that they're very passionate about this goalkeeper thing. My only concern with those people is, and I'm sure they'll deny it, is that the next player of any calibre that has a bad 6 months will be on the chopping block, because with these sorts of people, they're never happy. And if they can go after people like that, with the history they have at the club, they can go after anybody. Even the player they want to replace De Gea. You know, you're telling me if Onana doesn't have a very good couple of years, they're going to be there going, he's brilliant. We get rid of him. So it's a different world we live in. You know, I think that the X Factor generation, which started with Cowell about 20 years ago, has generated a generation of people who are, you know, what's next? They're never content. They can't look back. There's all, you know, it's what's the next shiny toy? And even if, you know, look at Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes came into this club. Everyone loved his first year. And now Bruno actually irritates a lot of United fans. And I'm like, but he's still performing the way he did in his first year. He's always been that player. He's a bit of a stat padder. He gets goals and assists that you probably don't notice. But he does misplace passes. But I love Bruno. It's the Real Madrid approach of supporting a football club. There's a lot of Real Madrid fans who just, you know, they boo Casillas, they boo Ronaldo. They want a new shiny toy all the time. And that's not really how I support the club. We do need to sign a lot of players. But, you know, I loved, like, the United team that Sir Alex Ferguson had when he left. There were so many people there that were coming towards the end of their careers. But I was never in a position where, you know, Patrice Evra, Vidic, Rio, you know, Rooney at that time, you know, they were coming towards the end of their time at United, but you weren't like, get out of my club, you shit. They'd earned that. It was like, they'll go when they're ready to go because they're that level of player. It's a different world now. It doesn't matter what you've done on your CV. If you're coming to, you know, if people think you're not quite as good as you were, get out my club. And, you know, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just a different way, isn't it? Glenn, I don't know about you, Mark, but I would much rather have a young and potentially top-class striker like Højlund over Kane, who has only a few years, says Utsav. And looks like it was the failure to get Kim Min-jae that is the thing that made him pivot to a goalkeeper, as both around 45 million, and both will help us play out from the back, says Glenny Boy. It doesn't get the publicity it deserves, but the Kim Min-jae failure really pissed off Ten Hag. And he's not going to do an article on it, but it did. We'd put a lot of work into that. He wanted to come to us. We were the favourites. The competition was Newcastle, and we expected to win. And then Bayern Munich just came in and went, there you go. And United were like, yeah, we can't compete. So, yeah, it's a big problem. And I don't even know if we'll sign a centre-back now. I mean, people talk about the French centre-back. I think there's a good chance of that, the Monaco one. But it ain't Kim Min-jae. Mark, in honour of the man, says Steve, David the Great legend, the multi-Golden Glove and Player of the Season winner, can you give him the send-off he deserves with a rendition of Everywhere You Go? Says Steve, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting clipped singing twatty songs. There's enough twats on TikTok doing that. And Dan says, hi Mark, I'd love Hoyland this summer. However, is only him enough? No, Dan, we do need 2 strikers. You're right. You are right. Welcome to Members Club Water. And Ivan says, I'm worried that we won't find a striker by the end of the transfer window. I think we should have signed Weghorst to fill the hole. I think you're a prat, Ivan. And now you are the super prat of the chat. In relation to Mason Greenwood, as I said last night, next 7 days are going to be key on that. One thing that will be very interesting is the Jadon Sancho situation. Now, Sancho has been on holiday. I don't know whether he's still on holiday. Man United are open to offers for Jadon Sancho. I would say the chances of Jadon Sancho leaving are next to 0. I personally wouldn't sell Sancho. I know a lot of you think it is time to go. I personally wouldn't sell Sancho, but I think I think with Maguire, he's got to go. He would probably say he's not going, but it's obvious he's got to go. McTominay the same, Fred probably the same, Martial the same. Those 4 players really should be asking to leave. With Jadon Sancho, it's very difficult because I don't get the feeling Jadon Sancho is one of those players that's going to knock on the door and say he wants to go. However, it's very, very clear that Ten Hag really is unable to get the best out of him, and not because he's a bad coach, it's just not working out. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with Sancho because the story from the training ground is that obviously Ten Hag is a massive admirer of Rashford and Antony. He likes both players and they're his first choice wingers really. Garnacho he absolutely loves. Ahmad is coming back. So Sancho sort of falls into the 4th place. He's a bit like Harry Maguire of the wingers really. He's the 4th choice winger. Rashford and Antony are first choice. Garnacho, he's knocking on the door and Sancho's next. That's a difficult position for Sancho, and it's a difficult position for Ten Hag, and it's a really difficult position for the club who spent £75 million on him and give him 300 grand a week. So there has to be, I think we can all admit with Sancho, there's got to be, it can't stay the same. He can't stay 4th choice centre back he can't stay 4th choice winger at Manchester United for another year or 2. There's an issue there to be resolved. And I'm a big one on solving issues. So there's 3 ways this issue can be solved. One of them, he puts in a transfer request and goes. 2, Man United put him on the transfer list and he goes. Or 3rd, he starts playing so well that he forces himself into the first team because the bench is not good enough for Jadon Sancho. It's not good enough for the player he's meant to be, but it's not good enough for the wage and salary we paid. So, people sometimes see a problem and they go, I don't know how you solve it. But that's just sometimes because the problem is difficult to face. The reality is Jadon Sancho in the next 12 months has got to become a Man United first team regular or leave. That's the truth. There's nothing in between. He can't continue to be 4th choice winger. And when you look at it like that, what's more likely? Is he likely to become a first team player for Manchester United? Well, Mason Mount also plays attacking midfield. So does Bruno. And so does Eriksen. So this talk that Sancho, which was bollocks, can play at a number 10 is dead. So he's got to play on the wing. Can he play on the wing? Well, the only way I think he can get in that team is if Rashford becomes a centre forward and there's another spot on the wing. But I still think Garnacho would take that. So I think when you look at the Sancho situation, I don't see him getting in the first team, but I would give it 12 months to see if he can. The match on the 12th should be David De Gea's testimonial, says Sud. Love the work you put into the channel over the years and the merch, says Dylan. Thank you, Dylan. Have you seen the away kit leak? It's giving me Carabao homage, says Eric. I mean, I'm not massive on kits anyway, but I can't stand that stripy thing. And Mr. Toffer says, I think if the women Mason was meant to forgive him, so should the rest of us. And my heart is broken by the way we treat De Gea. Thank you very much for that. Ivan, we did that. Weghorst, love it. So, look, the Sancho situation, look, it's one thing I've learned with David De Gea is that there's no point in second guessing what United are going to do. They went into the summer transfer window and they weren't going to replace David De Gea. He was going to be number one next year. United messed up the Kim Min-jae and Harry Kane transfer, and Ten Hag's had to pivot and go for a goalkeeper. So with Jadon Sancho, I'm not going to sit here and say he's definitely going to wear a United shirt next year or he's definitely going to get sold. I think he will be in a United shirt, but ultimately it might be time to cash in, because another year like last year and his price just plummets. I don't think he's sellable now. I mean, I think Maguire is sellable. I think McTominay is sellable. Fred is sellable. But for me, Sancho falls into the Martial category for different reasons. Who would buy Jadon Sancho? He's a good player, but we've done what we've done with every player. United stopped themselves selling players by giving them ridiculous wages that no one else will pay. So, I mean, you cannot loan Jadon Sancho. That would be ridiculous. 2 years in, 300 grand a week, you're loaning him out. That's stupid. So I don't know. Personally, and we said this a few weeks ago, if somebody came in and offered 40 million, I'd take it. I know that's low, but I'd think about taking it. Obviously, they'd have to take on his wages. 50 million, and we pay a bit of his wages off. But it's such a difficult problem, and I think I'm pretty confident that if this was a player from the youth setup on 70 grand a week, he'd be gone. He'd be gone. And it's sad how, and it comes back down to the ownership again. It's sad how so many of the players we want to move on, and this is nothing exclusive to this summer. It's been going on for years. It happened with Rojo as well. It's so sad that so many players that should be moved on quite comfortably cannot be moved on because of mistakes of the past in relation to wages and contracts. And that's what it comes down to. If Jadon Sancho was with the same age he is and he'd come through the youth like McTominay, he'd be gone. He's not quite good enough. He's not part of my plans. Sell him. The problem is, Ten Hag is hindered by the fact that Solskjaer paid stupid money and stupid wages for him. And I know it wasn't Solskjaer who negotiated, but it was the Solskjaer era. And we time and time again, we get stuck with players that shouldn't be here because of mistakes of the past. And that only gets solved by a new ownership model who come in, like Barcelona, like Real Madrid, like Man City, and go, well, you're not going to be hindered by past mistakes. You shouldn't have to keep that player. You didn't buy him. If it was Anthony, I'd tell you to fucking make it work for a year or two. But you didn't even buy Sancho. You didn't buy Maguire. That's not your mistake. That's the club's mistake. And we will take that on board. Leave that with me. We'll take that to the board. We'll find a way to take the loss and move them on, and we'll get the players you want. But that's not the manager's problem. The manager shouldn't have to be dealing with players he never bought and doesn't want because of financials. That's not how we should be being run. And that's why we need new ownership. So it's a problem. Sancho is a problem for Ten Hag. There are a few players that are a problem, but Sancho is a problem. And I think the only problem for Ten Hag is going to have to be keeping him. I can't see... Well, you tell me. Who's going to take Jadon Sancho? Why did Oli buy Sancho? He had no plan for him. Harry, you're absolutely spot on. He bought him and hardly played him. It's going to be keeping at least one half of McFred, surely, now that we're not going to be adding depth, says Mershid. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd rather keep Fred than McTominay, but I think we all know who will stay. I think if the women have done that one as well, Edward would keep screwing us over with players and wages long after he's gone, says Ashley. Yep, I agree. And only thing... Well, look, there's a very good point there as well. I hate to say this, but I mentioned this a few months ago. Homegrown quota. You've got to have a certain amount of homegrown players. And unfortunately, most of the players we should be getting rid of are homegrown. Dean Henderson, Brandon Williams, Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire. You could add Jadon Sancho into that. So we could do with buying another English player. I mean, look, Ten Hag really likes Mason Mount. The fact that he's got a British passport is invaluable. It is. Like, we could do with buying another British player. Like, we could, because it will help us sell some. Yeah, we are struggling a little bit for homegrown because most of our British players aren't that good. Only thing keeping me happy at the moment is my upcoming wedding next weekend, says Navish. Good. Well, yeah, stay happy about that, Navish. Sounds fantastic. What do you think happens over the next few days? And what do you think Arsenal will do with Rice, and how will his traits help us as Arsenal for life? You're on the wrong channel, mate. Look, Declan Rice is a good player, and I think you'll see a more expansive Declan Rice than what you saw at West Ham, where he had to play quite defensive. Could United offer cash plus Alanga for Edson Alvarez? There's another homegrown as well. Alanga's another homegrown Sardine as well. What do I think happens? Happy birthday to Prad as well. What do I think happens over the next few days for United? Well, United, after a signing, you've got to remember, it's a little bit like a bear having a shag, isn't it? They're exhausted. They have to put a lot of weight and effort into it. So they'll probably be lying back on a hill smoking a cigarette for the next few days, congratulating themselves on a good job. We're not the most dynamic football club in the transfer window anyway. And I never thought and also, let's not forget, we've not signed Mason Mount yet. So we're all going, what's next? Because Here We Go with Mount on Thursday. They haven't officially done his medical yet. So for United, I feel that the next few days, probably nothing. Because into middle of next week, or hopefully early next week, Mason Mount's holding the shirt up. So I don't expect United to do anything transfer-wise for the next few days, because they're still, congratulating and working on the Mason Mount deal. I mean, that feels like ages ago to me now. We should be moving on to the next one. I don't think they're going to do anything with the goalkeeper for a few days, because I think they're going to speak to David De Gea early next week. And I think there'll be some announcement that De Gea's leaving. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think anything's going to happen on a transfer. I really don't. Not official. I think we'll start to get some rumours around Onana and maybe Højlund, but I don't think we're going to sign anybody. As for the sale, look, every week that starts, I mean, not at the weekends, but every week that starts, because it's a business deal, you hope it's going to be this week. But again, I'd rather not start thinking about the sale on the weekend, because it just does your head in, doesn't it? Try and swap Fred, Martial and Cash for Tomori. We need a centre-back now. We can't get Kim Min-jae. Tomori is excellent, and he would be another homegrown, says the Beast. Yeah, somebody at some point is going to go for Tomori, aren't they? But I don't think it's going to be Manchester United, if I'm being completely honest. We'll sign Højlund. That's my feeling. Swifty Clips right here, right now. I think we'll sign Højlund. I mean, things can change, of course they can, but I think Højlund and Onana for the tour will probably be it, and then I think we might do a deal or two in August once the season started. But yeah, I think that Onana and a striker will be what we have for tour. And I don't think we'll do any other. We might end up just doing 3 deals. It might just be a goalkeeper, Mount, and a striker, which is nowhere near enough. But that might be all we do. But I think that at the moment there's no great amount of stories around a centre back or another midfielder. Sir Bosley's medical is today, having agreed a fee last night. Mount's medical is on Monday. A small example of how slow we are at everything, says Mo. Well, yeah, you don't know what the reasons are behind that. Somebody might be on holiday, I don't know. The medical room should be free, though, because Phil Jones has left now. Barcelona have signed Gula. He's a baller, says Mohammed. And good morning. Do you think Mount or Ericsson will play the number 10 to give Bruno a rest, says TMK? I wouldn't be surprised if we went back to doing stupid things like putting Bruno on the wing again. I mean, I really don't want to see Bruno or Mount on the wing, but I wouldn't be surprised if we started doing that a little bit. Mount, Onana, Lavia and Højlund, depending on outgoings, says S. Plank. I don't think we'll get... I mean, it's a good point, but I don't think we'll get Lavia. And you know why I don't think we'll get Lavia? Because I don't think we're in for Lavia, and I think other clubs will move for him. He's playing in the Championship. He's not going to be playing in the Championship. So I think that Lavia would be a very good signing, but we haven't got the money to go for him, so he'll end up going somewhere else like Arsenal. You said some poor things about Rooney in 2017, so what's the difference with your colleague? You then deleted the tweet, says Tunts. I've already spoken about it, mate. If you tuned in time, then you would know what I said. I've been doing this show for years. I don't need to lie. Wayne Rooney's a legend of this football club. I said it at the time. I've said it every time I've been asked about Wayne Rooney. He's always in my top 5 considerations of best players I've seen play for Manchester United. You can try and twist my words on a super chat, hiding behind whatever laptop or computer or phone you're on. But what I said about Wayne Rooney is, and the shows are there, I didn't like Rooney at the end of his time at Man United. I thought he was we were carrying him. I didn't think he was, I thought he was very, very poor in his last 2 years as a Man United player. And I was glad to see him go. But I respected he was a legend of the club and it was time to go. I don't know what you're trying to twist, because thick people go back to the past and try and take a bit of a tweet or a bit of a clip and try and ridicule people in the present. But I'm me. I know my mind. I know what I said, and you don't. So I was happy that Wayne Rooney left. I'd been saying for a couple of years that I think he was finished at this level. But he was always a legend of the club. Now, some of you might feel the same about David De Gea. That's fine. But there's a lack of respect that he's a legend of the club, which I completely disagree with. And also, David De Gea is not Wayne Rooney. David De Gea has just won the Golden Glove. I don't think David De Gea is finished. So I don't get your comparison with Wayne Rooney and David De Gea, both of which, in my mind, are legends, and I've said that. One, I think, had proven they weren't at that level anymore over 2 years, and one who I think still is at that level. Now, you might disagree, but that's my opinion, and that's your opinion. And you can't twist me up. You can't twist my arm behind my back or try and call me a hypocrite, because I know what I said. I know what I've just said, and there's no correlation. I will stand by the fact that Wayne Rooney, for his last 2 years at United, in my opinion, was done. But he was still a legend of the club, and he deserved respect when he left, which he got. I was glad he went, but he was a legend of the club. With David De Gea, I've always said, I don't think it's time to go, but I will respect the manager, and he's a legend of the club. Now, my issue has been, and I think a lot of people's issue has been, some people don't want to acknowledge that he's a legend of the club. They just want to shit on him on his way out, which I personally think that's a bit wrong. I didn't shit on Wayne Rooney when he left. I said, I don't think he's been good enough for the last 2 years. It's time to go. But he's been a brilliant servant to the club, and he's a legend. If you don't understand that, maybe intelligence is just not for you. Doesn't it worry you if we sign Onana? I mean, he doesn't play for the national team and once failed a drug test. Glazer's out. Everyone's got skeletons in their closet. Everyone's a risk. Everyone's a doubt, But no, I think that Onana got kicked out of his national team because he wanted to play as a sweeper. And the drugs, I don't know anything about the drugs test. I mean, look, if Eric Ten Hag's worked with him, if Eric Ten Hag likes him, that'll do for me. And also, whether Eric Ten Hag likes him or not, he is one of the most watchable goalkeepers in world football, and it will be entertaining. The only thing I would say is when we bought Barthez, I thought the same, and it didn't necessarily go that way. David De Gea last game at Old Trafford was saving a penalty from Mitrovic with Fulham 1-0 up and taking his third as a result. A proper send-off for an all-time legend, as always, says Mo. And doesn't it worry you? I've done that one from Glazers out as well. Well, look, let's wait and see what the day brings. I'm not expecting anything major, but you never know. We could have Here We Go and Anna at any point. I suspect we'll get Here We Go on other clubs doing business, but let's see what the day brings. Obviously, we've got the 8 o'clock show as per usual, and make sure you smash a like and subscribe. You're all legends. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.